when you want to level up and do some new things, the old you needs to go. Remember, you can't put new wine in old wineskins because it just doesn't work. You can't create something new and still be the same person.
Yeah.
Right. But that requires some pruning. That's the metal, the forged metal. Like that just doesn't happen.
Well, welcome to the True Man Podcast. Let me start with the question. How do you pivot in life when you face trauma or tragedy? How do you find the will, the empowerment, and the inspiration to push forward when everything says stop? We all go through this at some point in our life. Some of us go through it in seasons of our life, but certainly having self-awareness and the determination to go through self-development in order to achieve success is important for achievement. So let's talk more about that today with guest Ahmard Vital. Ahmard is a motivational consultant, international speaker, and author. He has empowered people globally with his inspirational guidance and tips on self-improvement, and has multiple books, but I was just going to point out the book, Now What? 5 Steps to Get Up and Create the Most Out of Life, and I'm sure he'll talk about some of his other books. Ahmard, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Mike, for having me on.
Yeah, we were just before the podcast began. I was telling him about my old days back in Houston. So we had a long conversation about Pearland, Texas. So hey to everybody in Pearland. I spent 9 lovely years there. It was awesome. So Ahmard, you know, when you reached out to me to be on the True Man Podcast, you mentioned a story about your book coming out and your father, and that really kind of captivated me. It's such a pivotal moment in your life. We, you know, especially having an experience like that with your father. So tell us a little bit about yourself and that story, and we'll kind of dive off there.
Well, you know, thank you, Mike, for teeing that up. And I look at that story as sort of a real major turning point in my life. I say a major turning point because, you know, as a young man coming up, you know, your father is a very strong piece of your life. And obviously I had 2 fathers, and I'm grateful for that. But the father I'm speaking of is the man who raised me for most of my early and formidable years. And I remember, like, he was you know, he was a world-renowned artist, did a lot of great work, worked under one of the best artists of his time. And the beautiful thing about him is that he was also a Vietnam veteran, which means there's no excuses allowed in the house.
Yep.
You can't come home saying that the teacher didn't like you, coach won't do this. And I mean,
he was a man's man. Correct.
The thing that's labeled pretty negatively today, which is interesting. But I love what, you know, he created in me. You know, I'm grateful for that. But I remember around the time I was coming up, you know, the place I'm in right now, the home I'm in right now, I bought at the age of 29. Had a job, had a business. I was a sports analyst. I mean, like, I was rocking and rolling, living what we would call the American dream. And then I had a total meltdown. I had a relationship I was leaning into. First time I took one serious, and then boom, it's over. No explanation. And so I went into a downward spiral. And I remember around that time having that conversation with God. Maybe your audience can understand those moments when it's like everything that you think can go wrong is. You're in a depressive state, even though from the outside, everything should be awesome. And I remember sitting in my guest bedroom in a house with 3 bedrooms, and you're sitting in the guest bedroom in the corner looking a mess. And I remember making a deal with God. I'm like, you know, God, I thought I was doing the right thing. You know, I'm kind of a mess. I have no idea what I'm doing. So check this out. I'll make a deal with you. If you wake me up tomorrow, I'll go on a new path, and I will lean on you first and do some things. And of course I did that. Ended up hiring a mentor, started reading books. Obviously the Bible was part of that. And also reading books like Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah, absolutely.
Started jumping into Richest Man in Babylon, Inspired Destiny by John DeMartini. There was just a bevy of books I jumped in. Who Moved My Cheese? Like, all of those books were just—
that's good stuff right there, man.
And so I was leaning in on that. But remember, I'm still a sports writer. So I'm like, wait a minute, how do I marry the 2 of these? And so that's when Awaken the Baller Within was born, where I did what Napoleon Hill did with successful entrepreneurs and business people. I did that with athletes. And so I ended up creating Awaken the Baller Within, got tabbed as, Athlete's Life book, one of the media outlets that named it that or whatever. And so for all the authors out there, you get the book, it's published, and you get what's called the author copies first. And so with this publishing house, they sent me like hard copies too. And I was like, whoa, this is awesome. And so I had a hard copy, and I remember I got my books in, and I was like, all right, I think they came in like the Saturday before. And I said, next week, I'm going to take this, I'm going to sit down with Dad, and we're going to have that father-son talk, the talk when it's just you and your dad, you're out back, maybe you're cracking a couple of them together, and you just have a moment with your father. It's just you and him, nothing else. Well, that moment never happened because the night after my 33rd birthday, my birthday was on Tuesday. That Wednesday, my father died. And I didn't have any heads up. Sometimes you'll know that your parents are in decline or a family member's in decline. I didn't get any of that. All I got was 5 screaming messages from my mother saying, your father's dying. And so, at that time, I'm going through the emotions. And at that time, I was part of a spirituality that was a little bit more, I guess you say, new age type. The thoughts are things, just, manifest all of those things. And so when I sort of gotten into that, but it was still based on the Bible, but it was like the Bible plus other stuff, as if the Bible's not enough. And so I'm in the car, and I'm just like, oh, I prayed to God, you make sure my father walks out of here. I know you said it's done. So I'm driving almost with like a level of arrogance, because it's like, I asked my father, it's going to be done, and he's going to take care of that. And so I get to the hospital, and it's like, Trail of Tears, 9/11, Shuttle Columbia, all in one. It's just dismal. And I'm looking around like, okay, this is the reality part of it. And, nurse is like, your dad has about a 4% chance of living. I'm just like, long as it's more than one, who cares? Like, we got this. Yeah. And so I'm still in that sort of spiritual arrogance at this point in time. And of course, there came a time, nurse comes up to my mother and was just like, he's only going to be alive if we keep the machine on. And my mom comes to me and she's like, I don't know what to do. And at this point in time, like, God has slapped me so many times to the point where I'm like, all right, this is out of my hands. And I said, my father's the strongest man I know. Take him off the machine and let him fight, because he's not the one to be left on a machine for his life and to be stuck in this position. Because I looked down at my father, and for the first time, I felt like him looking back at me, I felt like there was like something had changed. Like he was not there with me in that moment. And so my father fought for 4 more hours and that was it. And of course I have the famous conversation with God, or I'm not gonna say conversation, screaming match with him saying like, hey, like you said you'd be here and you're not. And I was pissed off. Yeah. And I remember after crying and sweating for, a matter of minutes, the still small voice, God's angelic voice spoke to me and said, you said you wanted your father to walk out of here, and I'm letting you know that I've fulfilled your request. Oh. He's walking out of here as you. Yeah. He gave you all you need, the values, the integrity, the work ethic. Now go be the man your heavenly father and your earth father want you to be. Go forth and do what you need to do. And from that point on, I was on fire. I started, doing new things because, your dad, at that time, my father was retired, and I could call on him no matter what time of day it was and ask him anything, and he would have an answer that was suitable for me to be able to move forward with life. I was like, I'm not man enough to do this on my own. I need him, and you took him from me. And so it forced me to grow up a lot quicker than I thought I was going to need to. And, I look back at that now and say that God putting me in that spot was the greatest blessing that could have ever happened to me. And there's been many more, but that was like step 1 of a 10-step process where it was just like, hey, get off the fence and go do something great with your life and serve at a greater capacity. And so that was a starting point, a very huge. This man right here doesn't exist without that moment happening. If my father would still be here, I don't know what version of me would be here in this.
That's really an incredible story from the standpoint of, you get your book, and I can so relate to this. I've had these moments happen in my life. You get the book and you just want to share it. You just want to share it with your dad. And you didn't get that opportunity
No, I didn't.
Yeah. When you reflect on that, I mean, have you been able to, I mean, those are tough moments, have you been able to, move on from that in some respects?
I have, and it's a moment I look back on. Like I said, it's a major turning point. But I also look at that and say, like I put in my new book, like what's good here? How did my father dying? Why is that the greatest blessing that could have ever happened to me? And so, when you ask those kind of questions, God gives you the resources around you to be like, okay, I see you're on a path of, wanting to know these things. And I think that there was a forced growth that happened in me. And it also helped me look at death in another way, because, if you read the word and it says, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. And like, he makes all things for the good. It's like our job of our end of that is to find the good of that. And so now when I'm leaning in and I'm ministering to others and they're going through those moments where like, it's so interesting. I've gotten more calls and texts in the past 4 months about people whose parents and family members are about to transition, or it's looking like that's about to happen. And like, it's like that moment, I would not be able to pour into them in the way I know how to, because like my dad literally like at the snap was gone. And so now I can look at it from the standpoint that like, hey, understand this is going to be some tough times. I said, but just know, lean into those who are around him, love on him. And it's like the bottom line is that you start looking at what this person meant to you in your life. Like, how are you a greater individual because that person lived? It's almost like the quote, ask not who will mourn you when you die, but how many people were better off because you lived. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of something that I've kept in the forefront. And it's just like, God does all of these things happen for a reason. And it's up to us to be able to find that reason. And sometimes those reasons, there's so much beauty in it. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, and I'm not saying there's not going to be some pain, but the pain is part of the beauty, right? My grace is sufficient. Like I start thinking about that and I'm just like, man, like, this pain is about to take me out. But I mean, there's so many examples of how pain didn't take them out when you lean on the strength, the wisdom, and the.
So Ahmard, talk about how you've been able to transition what you gained from your father's death into, how have you used that pain to get you to where you are today?
It's a beautiful reminder of really being grateful for the moment that is, right? Because you never know when that moment is going to turn into something else. Yeah. And so I live with a level of gratitude. And of course, now I've grown much more in the past couple of years than I probably have in the last decade, joining a new church down here in the Woodlands, Texas. It's been a great blessing to me, because now I wake up not only in gratitude, but in intercession on behalf of all those around me who are helping create, who can show up on a podcast like this and share. Men who are around me, godly men who are righteous, faithful men around me, family men around me who I lean on so many different levels. I always say, like, a man needs multiple levels of men in his life. I'm starting to teach that at like the age of like 12 or 13. Have you a council of a minimum of 3 men around you at all times whom you can lean on, a mentor type, a pastor, minister type, and someone who's an expert in the field you're looking to pursue or that you're in. Like, that's at a minimum right now. Like right now I think right now I have 3. I'm about to add a 4th. As I start building myself up or whatever, but just seeing how I think my father dying helped me understand not only to have more faith and leaning not and going to my father, my heavenly father, much more, but also to make sure and build a community of father loving men around you at all times. That's why when Someone told me recently, like, I've been doing the virtual church thing. I was like, no, you need to go to church.
Yeah.
You will not get poured into through a computer screen. Now, if you're forced and you're on the road and you can't make it somewhere, I get that. But that does not need to be your your weekly thing. You need the community around you. You need hands who can, when you walk into a church and you're completely broken, I'm talking about the puzzle piece is just in 500 pieces. You can walk in there and within moments, you will have enough hands on you to restore and repair you on the spot, right? And go in there and get anything you need. You need love, you need assistance, you need finances, you need whatever you need. The church can provide it to you, given that the church is a Bible-based church, right? But you need the community. And I think that is something that I learned that I didn't know I needed until I absolutely needed it.
Did it happen by accident, or did you go looking for help?
So the beautiful thing is, I always say that the once again how things work out for the good. Everything surrounding COVID, all of it. From the spiritual to the mental to the political, all of it was a blessing. I know that's going to be tough for some people here because some people lost a lot of things, and I understand that because we all did take some level of losses. But what it did show, it took the mask off of a lot of things that were under the surface. Yeah. And I was serving at a place that questioned my values when all of these things happened. Was asking me to lean in on some of the what's the word? What's the PC word to use? On the
you don't need to be PC on here.
Well, I know. And people be like, he's not PC. The gender things, right? With the children.
Yeah.
Oh, that woke me up because I didn't know that kind of stuff was going on. And I was asked to grow in that way. And I was like, grow what? That I'm okay with Billy doing so? Like, I was like, whoa. Yeah. And I remember I was dating a woman at the time. And at that time I had helped build that teen ministry up. 3 years. I had a good mentor man over there who taught me ministry from a youth standpoint. And it was awesome. And we were rocking, like the teen ministry there was rocking. It was growing at a high clip, and we were pouring into those. And I helped build that over a 3 or 4 year period. And I was dating a woman at the time, and she said, you have to leave this church. And I was like, my teens are in there. I was like, those are my children. I was like, I'm not, like, you have to leave this church because this church no longer aligns with your values.
Oh boy.
And eventually you're not going to be able to make this work. And I'm just like, is there any other way? She's like, you're going to end up leaving this church. And I pushed back against her for saying that, but she was right. They were telling me that I needed to buy into the, you could switch back and forth between, I guess, the sexes, the genders. I don't know. I'm still confused on some of this stuff.
Oh yeah, it is confusing.
And so I remember I left there and I was lost and I was seeking. And there was a woman who used to take my cycling class years ago, and I ran into her at Sam's, and she was just like, our church is open. And I was like, there are no churches open. She's like, our church is. Our pastor said, you want to come shut us down? You show up here. You show up here and you do something about it. And they were doing the drive-through thing, and it was like, we're going to open up. He had an overflow section for people who maybe wanted to kind of, do the distancing thing. But I think we just started doing like, one chair in between, and we sat in there and we worshiped and we praised together. And I walked into that church in October of 2020, and I've been there ever since. And I will say that the Grace Woodlands is literally the greatest blessing I've probably had come into my life in the last decade. And soon as I got in there, it was just like, wow. I'd never heard someone who was so unapologetically teaching from the word and not scared to lean into cultural and societal issues, because it was like, just like I was like, hey, can you say this? Can you say this? And it's like, and that's just the part where we are. But it's like, no, like, we cannot sit on the sidelines anymore. This whole thing has awakened the revival. And it's like, and it's,
yeah.
I'll tell you right now, it's awakening some young people too, because obviously the young people are under attack. And so our job is to charge them up, because they're the ones who are going to do it. The revival's coming from 2 generations behind us. It's the ones who are basically middle school through about early college. They're going to be the ones who are going to turn this around. And so I'm grateful and loving the fact that yes, I was seeking. Yes, I was in pain. Yes, I didn't know what I didn't know what I didn't know, and I didn't know what I needed until you experience it, and you're just like, oh, this is the blessing I've been looking for, and I'm here. And now it's like, all lean in on it, full stop, no emergency brake, no brakes. Let's just all gas. Let's go.
It's funny. I was getting excited there for a minute, and then I realized I got a bad peg, and I was ready to run through a brick wall there for you. But you know, talk about this, because you work with young people now a lot. You speak to that group. That's kind of where your bread is buttered. So, you know, we're seeing. There's a lot of stuff going on in the media right now, on social media. There's just a lot of stuff being said. What do you see going on with young people, with the people that you're spending time with right now?
For one, society has lied to our young people.
Oh,
I mean, they lied to us too, but
that's a 4-hour podcast right there.
Exactly. But, you know, telling, you know, and I get really amped up about this, because like, especially what they're doing. Well, what they're doing to both, but what they're doing to young men, you know, tell them, you know, don't be competitive. Don't, you know,
yes.
Like if you have leadership traits, if you're stoic and pragmatic and have standards, it's like, oh, keep all that toxic stuff away. It's like, man, please get away from me with the toxic stuff, right? And I'm not saying that there's not some dudes out there who are some, you know, maybe some bad dudes, but like, for the most part, man, and think about this. How did we get here? We got here because some of the feminization of young men was going on in our generation.
Yeah.
And some of them now are grandfathers. So shocker, when you have these young men who don't want to go out there and roll their sleeves up and fight, who don't want to go outside and do things, who don't want to lead, right? And so what's happening with young people is they're torn between biology, cultural, spiritual, societal. And it's just like, because again, reality always wins, right? Like telling young ladies to go get the bag, you don't need a man, and you're going to do that. Eventually they're going to be like, this is a kind of lonely life, right? Telling young men to be feminine and don't compete. Sports are bad. And, you know, all of those things. Like eventually you're just like, what is this weird feeling I have inside of me? Yes, you need to like get some energy out. That's what needs to happen. And so they're trying to masculinize the girls, feminize the guys. It's like this perfect storm of just like none of this works. And then they get into their teens, and you wonder why mental health is through the roof. You wonder why the suicidation amongst teenage girls has doubled, tripled. Yeah, the gender situation has increased like 200-300%. Like, that's not by accident. Like, well, people weren't affirming them back in the day. No, you're teaching them that, right? You're teaching an 8-year-old that there's something going on. An 8-year-old doesn't know anything. An 8-year-old is taught. Oh,
I struggled knowing anything when I was an adult. This is what I laugh about. I mean, you know, right, Ahmard? I mean, sometimes you're in your 20s going, man, I don't know what the world's all about. How would we ever expect an 8, 9, 10-year-old kid to know? It is not conceivable. It's absolutely not conceivable.
I love kids.
Yeah.
I'll start there. I love kids. But in the sense of life, they're not smart. Okay. let's just put that out there. And when they say, oh, he knew that he was this when he was 7 years old, I was like, no, he didn't. Because at 7 years old, you barely know how to go to the bathroom correctly. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go with that. And I always use the example. I was like, and I tell my teens this right now. I said, if I gave you $200 for a week and put you in an apartment and you can do what you want, and this money is for food only, I was like, what do you think of 14, 15, 16, even a 17-year-old? It's going to be pizzas, Takis, Sour Patch Kids, There won't be any food group. There won't be food that they need that's actually going to make them feel good. It's going to be a bunch of stuff to make their stomach hurt. What I'm saying is, I don't trust a teenager to be able to eat the right foods.
Yeah.
So why would I trust a child to make a life-changing decision about his or her body? Really? Like, I understand. And now we could probably have this conversation 100 years ago when, you was a grown man at 15. But you know what? The game was different then, right? It was survival. You understood. You were taught things early. You were working in the field by like 8 years old. Okay? We're not there anymore. Good times creates what we have right now. It's been too good. It's been too good for too long. So now here we are, women and men who don't know their purpose in the game of life. And we're fighting each other. We're wondering why there's so much strife. It's because society is absolutely, like you said, the media, telling young people all of these things, do what you want, do what makes you happy, YOLO, all of that stuff. And it's just like that nonsense is getting people killed, right?
Oh man, yeah. I'm gonna bail you out right now. Let's go another direction with this, because you and I could get just incredibly fired up about this. I have no doubt about it. I mean, we really need to be loving on our kids, not treating everybody like they're 8 going on 30. Okay, that's really what I see going on here. We're trying to treat everybody like they're an adult, and they're not. They're children. So what we need to do is make a cultural shift, I think. So talk about how you suggest that maybe we could do that via your book. How about talk about, your 5-step book and how we can make these shifts, because to me, it's all about mental attitude and getting your mind right more than anything. Talk about that a little bit. You like how I bailed you out there?
No, man, I've already reloaded twice. We're ready. But before we go into the 5 steps with the now what, first of all, this is all spiritual.
It is.
Everything is spiritual. Everything. The stuff that's going on right now is evil and demonic. I know that those are strong words, and they're used strong for a reason, because that is exactly what is going on. It's disgusting and it's demonic. That's number 1. Number 2, until we take care of the foundation, obviously the first foundation is, everything built on the foundation and the love and the word of God. That's number 1. Okay. That needs to be reestablished.
Yep.
And the other thing that has to be reestablished before we do anything is to repair the home. Oh. We can build all the community centers. We can put all the money in the education. Yes. We can do all of that stuff. If you don't rebuild the house, it's over. Okay. If you don't have father, mother, children, it's game over. Right. It's a reason why we need the nuclear family to come back. But shockingly enough, society's like, you don't need the nuclear family. We can create a new family. Yeah. How's that working out?
Yeah.
How's that working out? It's not. Right? And so, it's almost like we got to get to the young people, because let's just say this, like basically millennials, Gen X, Boomer, all like, I'm not saying we're done, but we need to rebuild. We need to rebuild from the floor.
Yeah, right? we got to reset here. Yeah, there's absolutely no doubt.
So establishing, the ones who are 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, telling them how important family is, right? So that when they come up, they don't be like, I don't need. I just want to live the bachelor lifestyle. Ladies, like, I want to go get, this career, go get this bag or whatever. And it's just like, all of you all are lonely and miserable, right? And all of you are on some kind of pills because you won't go into church because they tell you church is where all those evil, crazy people are or whatever. Right. And it's like you walk into church and you're just like, man, I've never felt love like this before.
Yeah.
Shocker how that works. But it's funny because now what was written in the height of the 2020 things, and maybe some of your audience maybe were paying attention and knew a few things that were going on. And I was listening to some podcasts, and I'm driving down the tollway, and I was just so sick of the conversation of what you're owed, who did something wrong to you.
Yeah.
The whole just the victim Olympics on steroids. Like, you need to atone for this. It's like, do you even know that guy? Right? What did that lady do to you? That one over there, like your neighbor, what did she do to you? right? And it's like all this stuff, all this nonsense about entitlements. And I was over it. And so I remembered I wrote the outline for that while I'm driving on the highway. Kids, don't do that at home. Don't do that. But ideas come to me as a writer all the time. And sometimes I just have a spark and I need to get it out of my head. And so I was looking at it. I was like, okay, let's just say, Mike, you've totally like threw a torpedo, a grenade into your entire life. Like it's just a bad spot. Maybe you have, 2-3 felonies, you flunked out of school 3 times. You hit bankruptcy, divorced twice. Maybe you had, 2 or 3 more kids you can't afford on all the assistance in the world. And life is just, you can get nowhere. And I was like, if I had that person across from me, which I did, I had a former classmate with me, and he was telling me his situation. I was just like, God, what do you want me to do with this? And so I came up with 5 steps to create the most of life. And the first thing we start off with is we reflect. It's like, okay, there's a crying baby in the other room. There's a pile of dirty clothes. There's a fire started in the kitchen. And how did we get here? So you need to reflect on like what caused all this mess that's around me. Like, how did we get here? Like, you need to be able to look in the mirror and say, I'm owning all of this. Like, I didn't start that fire in there, but it's in my house, right? And so just reflect on, what is going on here. And so once you be able to unpack that, then you can go into, the other stages. But with reflection, I like to do what's called the what's good here. And we talked about it briefly earlier, where you take one of these old school pads. I know people like to type stuff, but I need you to go get an actual pad and write things down, pen and paper. That's how we did things before there were computers. And you write things down. And I want you to write down, and I'm going to use a particular word. I want you to write a line down the middle of this, and I want you to write on the left where your life sucks. Like I'm talking about like full pity party, like everything that when you're complaining and you're, talking to someone over that cheap wine, you may be drinking, with your people or guys, some cheap, a bargain barrel clearance beer, that pity party, the bad stuff, like the one that's always on sale. You're talking to your people over there. I want you to write down all the stuff you would tell them during that time. Like I'm talking like go full pity party. Like I want you to unload all the ways where your life is just terrible. And I want you to take that list and I want you to put it aside. And I want you to let it sit for it. I'd say at least a day. Go on with your life. Let it go. Then when you come back to that list, I want you to pray over it, sit still with it and just clear your mind as best you can. Some people like to meditate. Some people like to pray. Either one works and neither one of them are the wrong answer. And then on the other side of it, I want you to write down why that terrible thing was actually a blessing for you, or what we would say a good thing. I want you to write down why that's a good thing. One or two things are going to happen. Either you're going to realize you grew because that happened and it caused something else to happen. It caused you to level up in your job, caused you to go get training. It caused you to get a better opportunities and create some things for yourself. Maybe it helped you budget better. Maybe it helped you do a lot of things. Maybe it helped you go get community. Meaning there was some good that happened from that bad decision that was good. That'll happen. Or you look at that and be like, why am I still worried about this person? This person's been out of my life for 10 years. Why have I been allowing them to be in my space, my mental space? And so you just crash that out. You're like, okay, this person, I bless this person and I release them. They're not supposed to be in my life. I'm not supposed to be thinking about them. They are old news, right? You need to take that old stuff and you need to throw it out. So it's either you find out how it was a beautiful thing or you're wondering, why the heck am I even thinking about this? And so that's where the reflection part comes in. And of course, after that, after you clean up all the mess, you need to decide. Your life isn't good? Okay, what does a good life look like? This is where we do the work in reverse, where you start making a goal. It's like laying things out. It's like, hey, this is what I want to do. If I had a great life, it would be this. If I want to start this, I want to do this. And so you go through and you decide. And you maybe lay things out in a way where you have multiple options to go with, and then you choose. And of course, that's when we go into step 3, which is the planning stage. So of the things you wrote down there, which ones of them seem most probable? Not possible. I know. With God, all things are possible, but I'm talking about probable, right? I would love to be an astronaut. Guess what? Is it possible? Sure. Probable? Heck no. Okay. It's not happening. I'm not going back to school for all of that. So that's where you go with possible and probable. What's the quickest way to get myself out of this mess that's going to be fulfilling for me to do some things? And that's where we're going to plan the stage. Mind maps, business plans, all of those things. And so after you get through with planning, boom, it's time to get up and move into action, right? So you got all these things laid out. No, it's never going to be complete, and no, it's never going to be right. But you have to start with what you have and go out there and learn. Yes, you will run into a ditch. Yes, you will run into a roadblock. You may even run into a bear trap and and harm yourself in some kind of way. But that's the only way you're going to learn. Anyone out there who's in business has put together a business plan, and that business plan has changed 87 times before they go and they make something happen from it. In fact, the business plan, maybe that wasn't even true at all, but it led them to a place to be able to do some things. So you go into action.
That never happened to me.
Oh, never. The best laid plans. Yeah. I know. God said, put it on plain tap, make it plain so you can run with it. And then sometimes you run into a brick wall, and it's like, okay, do that plan again, and let's try something else. And so we go into action and make some things happen. It's really aggressive and moving with that. I don't like the, tiptoeing around thing. Let's just go ahead and run. Sometimes you may end up in some bad spots, but if you don't run, you sometimes
but it's really, really important, because I think I talk about this word action a lot, because it's a choice. It's a choice, and so many people choose not to be in action. And when you're not in action, I mean, you just will go stand in front of a moving truck. I mean, you're going to be taken out. You're not going to get to the next level of greatness that you want to get to. I mean, it can't happen. To me, when we talk about our culture, this is what's really lost. You got to roll up your sleeves. You got to roll up your sleeves and get into action. Nothing. I remember taking an economics class in college, and the first question, the guy walked in the classroom and went, "Is there anything in life for free? Anything? And the answer to that is no. You got to roll up your sleeves and get after it now. And that's just the way it is. And the more you get after it, the more good things will come to you. Is that fair?"
I actually have a chapter. In there called the F words. And I know somebody can be like, "Oh, you went there with it?" Yeah, I went there with it, but it's not that F word. It's stuff like free, like there is no such thing as free. Everything has a cost. We've taken that out of society. Delayed gratification. What's that quiet quitting that's going on now? Like, I'm on my job, but I'm not putting in the work. It's like, it's going to catch up with you at some point. And then people wonder why, like, and I'm not really for the idea of massive amount of people getting laid off, but my father used to always teach me, like, you need to make yourself so valuable to where you'll never be the first round of people who get put out of a job, like, because you do so many different things. It's like that. So the mindset I always have, and I teach others, is make it to where if they let go of you, it takes 3 people to replace you. Like, you're that valuable, and that's the thing. Like you said, there's nothing for free. Delayed gratification, just the idea that, like, nothing just happens quickly. Like, we just stop paying attention to nature. Right? No, there's no quick stuff in nature. That seed is under there. You can't mess with it and things of that nature. So there is a even in scripture, right?
Is it a coincidence that patience and perseverance comes up in scripture? I mean, come on now.
I mean, goodness. I mean, whether you go old or new, like there's a process. There's a trade-off. You not only does nothing come for free, most of the times it's going to require a level of sacrifice, and even if you want to kind of go with the nature side of things, like for somebody who wants to level up, let's just say you want to go from middle management to like VP level or whatever. The middle manager needs to die to grow into the VP. And when you start thinking about like the caterpillar to a butterfly, that's a death. The caterpillar must die to grow into the butterfly. And for us, when you want to level up and do some new things, the old you needs to go. Remember, you can't put new wine in old wineskins because it just doesn't work. You can't create something new and still be the same person. Right? But that requires some pruning. That's the metal, the forged metal, like that just doesn't happen. And so, yes, the taking action part of it, you just can't sit back and just think that things are just going to unfold or quote unquote manifest on its own, right? None of that stuff. And I mean, and I always laugh and jokingly say that because I did get swept up in that, like, yeah, I'm just going to just put that energy out there and like, poof, God, the genie is just gonna, Thanos snap it into my existence, right? And it's like, it just doesn't happen that way. And so it's beautiful. And of course, the last part of it after action is to seek. And that's seeking counsel. We talked earlier about having a council of men, having a council of people in your life. You need a mentor. You need an accountability ally, somebody who you can, put your goals down and hand it to them and say, hey, this is my goals at the beginning of the year. Hold me accountable. It's like you want someone who loves you, but doesn't infatuate over you, who doesn't idolize you. Because you want somebody who can check you, right? You want somebody who looks at you and be like, hey, when the real Mike shows up, let me know, because I don't know who this Mike is. This Mike is not living up to what the men's life is supposed to represent. So when he decides to show up, you can give me a call back. But right now, this man is falling short. This man is making excuses. I don't know who this guy is. I don't even know who you are. And you want people like that who can lean in on you and hold you to like a very high standard that you set for yourself, who will stretch you. Here's this goal. Why are you only going for this amount of weight loss? Why are you only going for this amount of salary? Why not push for this? Well, that's too much. According to what? Because we're told if we seek first the kingdom, all these things will be added unto you. Your basic necessities will be met. But then there's also an overflow of things over and abundant of what you've asked for. Because once you become a giving person, which that's a whole other conversation as well. Once you become a giving and gratitude person, you get blessed with more, because it's like, wait a minute. Every time Mike gets something, he's giving more. Let's see. How about we bless him with more opportunities? And so many people get that caught up. It's like, when I get more, I'll give more. And I'm like, you'll never get more because you're not willing to give. You're not willing to give from where you are right now. And that's another lesson that I learned. Actually, that lesson I learned going through my divorce, where, you lose 65% of your income and you still stay true to the tithing. And at the end of the month, you look at your account and it has $8.27 in it, and you're freaked out. Like, this is scary. Yeah. But you have to lean in on the idea that this is what you're called to do. Like the woman who came in and said what she gave is more than all of you who have more than her. What she gave actually is a true cost. So she's really buying into the idea of giving, in this moment. You all are pretending. She is the true giver right here. And we have to become more like her, no matter what level we become. And I think that that's another place where the growth came in. Is where it's like, all right, not only am I, upping how much I give financially, but I have devoted, and I've talked to the pastors at my church, to where I'm going to now allot, 4, 6, 10, opening up my office to just bring young men in and just mentor them. Lay out what we're trying to do. Bring me your plan, right? You just can't just show up and do, I don't want to talk. No, come in here with a plan, and we're going to sit down and we're going to find a way to be able to level up on all these things. And it's interesting. Yeah. Once I open that opportunity up, like it's guys wanting to talk about a myriad of things, about their money, about their school, about their job.
You know this as well as anybody. I mean, in a lot of cases, they're not getting it in their home, or they don't have the right people that they're around. They're just not getting it. And I think that, as men that are givers, as men that care, we have to be intentional about creating that kind of atmosphere, culture, place to go. Because in a lot of cases, I mean, there's just a lot of kids or men that they're not getting it anyplace else. They don't know where to go get it, unfortunately.
Well, and I think that's why platforms like yourself, and it's good that we're finding, because we don't have to be that deep. We just have to be intentional. Because the thing is that the work you're doing, and the work that I've committed to, is like, what we're doing is we're creating versions of ourselves. Because if we lean into 10 guys, you know, and 1 out of 10, so 10% end up wanting to do what we do. So now they're carrying the torch. So let's just say we reach 10,000 guys. Let's just say we reach 100,000 guys. Now we're duplicating of ourselves, and so that next generation can make sure and can be poured into properly. And so that's sort of my mindset. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to reach everyone, but I'm going to reach the right ones. You know, those who are seeking will end up in our circle some kind of way or another. And I'm glad you talked about, you know, some of them are getting it at home. Some of them are getting it at home. And at the same time, they know that it takes a lot more than what just is going on. I have a lot of fathers who come to me and say, man, thank you for what you are doing, because, you know, you get numb to dad sometimes. You know, dad is dad. You know, like you hear dad, and it's like, so if the values are aligned and Mike or Mr. Vital is saying the same thing dad is saying, you know, dad can sit over there and just be like, oh, you got it. Good. Glad you finally decided to come around and understand that this is true. But sometimes it does take the community sometimes to lean in, because, you know, one impression is never enough for anyone. Even for us, we need to hear stuff multiple times before we make moves.
True.
So obviously the same goes for our young people as well. And you know, I just look at them. They're the future. I love them. A lot. And I think this dedication is not new, but more recent. I mean, you couldn't have talked to the 25-year-old version of me and gotten this type of talk. I did enjoy, you know, the sports writing and leaning and, you know, working with young people, but the level where I'm at now is obviously on a different level, because I'm taking all of it. I'm taking the sports, the entrepreneurship, the business, the work, the ethics, the style, the grooming, and I'm wrapping it all up into like one big ministry. It's not like a separate Ahmard Vital shows up everywhere anymore. Like, you know, this is it's all here. The aggressiveness, the football player and the team ministry leader are all in one, and good luck with dealing with that. But it's just who I am, and it's what I want to lean into. And everyone has a lane, and everyone has a different style they come to the game of life with. Yeah, obviously mine is very direct. Mine is very to the point. Mine is not for the soft-hearted. And the youngsters I work with understand that, and they love it. The parents love it. The pastors love it.
I think when you know that, you know, you're with somebody who's authentic and real and passionate about what they do, I think we all know what that looks like. And so I'm sure that's what they're buying into for you. And we didn't even get to how being involved in sports plays into all that, but that's big. I mean, you know, I know that, you know that, and that sets up a lot of great disciplines and everything else in life. But as we begin to wrap up today, tell everybody how we'll of course put all this information in the show notes, but tell everybody how they can get a hold of you and learn more about you and your books.
Ahmard Vital, ahmardvital.com. That's the hub for everything. All the stuff is there. There's, you know, booking information. All of my books are there. Some videos, some resources are there as well. Ahmard Vital is on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. It's just my name. So once you get to ahmardvital.com, you type in Ahmard Vital and it'll pull up. I got contact form, emails, info@ahmardvital.com. What I'm offering as well, obviously you can go preview my new book. Go to booknowwhat.com. It's a free digital copy there. My publisher made that available for your audience. But I also want to do something different as we're seeing the battles that are going on spiritually, culturally, and societally. Yeah. For those who go to my website or email me at info@ahmardvital.com, if you put the True Man podcast in the subject line, if you have a young person, a young adult who maybe is just having a season, and I mean like a season, like not just a bad day here, I'm talking about a season where things are just, you know, mental health and depression, anxiety is through the roof in our young people right now. Suicidation is up a lot, and we can't afford to lose our future generations. We cannot afford for them to go down a path this society is telling them to. So with that said, if you put this podcast in there and kind of give me a little backdrop of what's going on with your young person right now, I will offer a 30, 45-minute discovery call with them to be able to just at least help them, clean up the living room, clean up what's going on, just to get them on a path. Not going in, it's almost like it's a coaching session to be able to just get them out of that dark place. Give them a flashlight, give them a match so that they can at least see where there's a pathway to be able to make some things happen. And I want to offer that to your podcast listeners, Mike, to have that session complimentary on me to give back to those young people who are struggling right now.
Well, you're gracious to do that. And listen, I feel your energy, man. If I didn't have this bad giddy up right now, I'd be ready to run through a brick wall, man. You got me all fired up. I enjoyed our conversation and learned a lot here today. So thank you for being on the True Man podcast. Really appreciate your time.
Man, I appreciate you having me on, and it's good to run into someone who does stand for righteousness and who wants to see the world be better, and also understands that it's time to roll our sleeves up and get in the fight.
Yep. We got to put ourselves out there. So thanks again for being on.
Thank you.